Mics are on whenever you want to start.
Good evening, everybody. Let's call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Sunnyside City Council study session for today, September 2, 2025. For the record, all members of council are here and all indicated staff are here as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here. First item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Council members, you've had a chance to look over the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed or added from discussion this evening? All right, hearing nothing. What is the desire of council on this item? All right, we've got a motion from Councilor Frausto, second by Deputy Mayor to approve the agenda as presented. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Councilor Hart.
Yeah. Yes. What?
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Frausto. Councilor Ripley. Councilor Galvan.
Yes.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, I apologize. Councilor Hancock.
Yes.
I too vote yes. The agenda is approved. All right. First item, new staff introduction. Mr. City Manager, I'm going to allow you to introduce your new staff.
Thank you. This was brought up at council a couple meetings ago about introducing new staff. This is something that we had always done in my previous time here, and the mayor indicated that they used to do it during his time as well. So without further ado here, I'd like to introduce Monica Hofstetter. She's our new finance director. She comes from the Tri-Cities area. Yeah. And then Heath Anderson, he's our HR generalist. Background in finance and HR. So
Okay, excellent. Welcome aboard, you two. We used to have a tradition of new hires would come before council so that we could put a name and a face together. And that helps us when we come to City Hall. It helps you when we come to City Hall and you know who you're talking to. It makes your life easier, makes our life a little bit easier. And so it's just exciting to see new people. There's always all that new potential that comes along with you and the buzz that comes along with you. So it's great to have you here. And I hope that your tenure here in Sunnyside is absolutely phenomenal and the best years of your life. Council members, I don't know if you have any comments you'd like to add to that.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Was it Heath? Heath Anderson?
Yeah, with an H.
With an H?
Yep.
Heath.
Just like the candy bar.
Candy bar.
Yeah.
Yes, welcome, and maybe give them the floor if they want to take an opportunity to say something.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys would like to say a word,
No.
There's no pressure.
no pressure.
Not one of my,
Yeah, there's nothing quite like the pressure goes with speaking into a microphone in front of an audience. So we totally understand that. All right, welcome aboard, though. It's good.
Monica.
You will be. I'm sorry, Monica. You have no choice. But it's good to have you here, and it's good to be able to welcome new staff members here. So, all right, item B, U.S. Bank authorized users update. So in our last regular meeting, we had this come before council to add names and change names as authorized users for the U.S. Bank account. At that time, it was specifically for the investment accounts, but this, I think, is covering all U.S. Bank accounts. Is that correct? Yes. And so we are asked to approve a resolution designating our finance director, Monica Hofstetter, and city clerk, Jacqueline Renteria, as authorized staff to access and maintain city accounts and deposits at U.S. Bank. And I don't know, Mr. Manager, if you'd like to make comments on that, or
I think the word that we got hung up on last week was the accessing of an investment account versus opening an investment account. So that correction's been made along with the finance director's position. So that's
Okay.
what has changed since last week.
so Ms. Hart?
So what word are we using?
Accessing.
Okay. Which is the word that was already available in the resolution, correct?
No, the previous word was opening an investment account.
Okay, thank you.
Further comments?
Just, Jim, did the bank have any trouble with that wording? Have you talked to the bank yet?
I have not talked to the bank. Monica, have you talked to the bank?
I have, and I've talked to the investment and also the regular bank account, and they don't seem to have any problems with it.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. All right, motion by Councilor Hart, second by Councilor Hancock to approve the resolution designating Finance Director Monica Hofstetter and City Clerk Jacqueline Renteria as authorized staff to access and maintain city accounts and deposits at U.S. Bank. Is there debate on this item? None. Counselor Hancock,
Yes.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Fausto, Counselor Vasquez,
Yes.
Counselor Hart,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
I too vote yes, motion passes. All right. The next is item C, Finance Department Overview. Mr. City Manager.
And I will turn this over to Monica. I think she's got some interesting tidbits and ideas to share. So,
All right, Ms. Hofstadter.
I don't know if I want to open the floor up for you guys to start, or if you want me to kind of tell you where I'm at.
Why don't you give us a bit of an overview of where you're at, and then we can kind of base our comments and questions from that.
Okay, so I began working towards the end of July with Sunnyside. And when I started, I realized that some of the accounts maybe weren't being completely, how do I put this? There was nothing being done. So we had an employee that went out on leave. And when she went out on leave, absolutely nothing had been done since she left. So everything was just zeros. And so that was a little alarming, and I was having a hard time being able to access anything to be able to input data into the system. And as long with that was the reconciliations. And I had a bit of a concern because there was, when I looked at it, I could kind of tell like the reconciliations, there was no possible way for them to be done properly. And so after I had a meeting with Springbrook, I realized that none of 24 is completed right now. And so I have to start over.
None of it?
None of it. None of it's been done.
It's,
So what you're suggesting is that the reports that we've been getting right along, that our accounts have been balanced up to July, up to the, and so on, and that is not accurate.
Correct. There was no possible way for it to be correct because the way the data was input into the system, what happened is what they were doing was we have a merchant account that our credit cards go into, and that merchant account, they were downloading and uploading into the system. When they upload it into the system, they upload it directly into everybody's account on one side, but then it would just hit the bank account on the other side. So in the bank account, it showed all the different credit card transactions, when in actuality, none of those credit cards ever hit our bank account. They stayed inside of a merchant account, and then we would manually have to take some of that and transfer it into the bank account. So the only part that was actually going to the bank account was that lump sum. Being that sometimes there's positive and negatives with those credit cards, being able to balance those credit cards properly is very difficult. What should have been in a long time ago, and I mean prior to anybody's time here, was and it's fixed now, was they needed to create a new bank account to say in our system to where those merchant accounts were carrying that balance, and then just that transfer was happening. So what I have found with my meeting with Springbrook is, unfortunately, I have to undo 2023 because some of our transactions from the beginning of 2024 were placed into 2023. So in undoing 2023, I'm going to have to do a prior year adjustment to close 24 and close 23 properly. And then after I get all those done, I can then move forward with 25.
Okay, so that's very related. I mean, it seems kind of like the same type of news that we heard about a year ago. Where we heard that our finances were also not looking very nice, and it created a bit of a crisis in the city. Is this a crisis that we're looking at?
It's just the data needed to be fixed, and it's fixed now, moving forward. I personally have worked all weekend. I have January of this year, February and March reconciled. I only have a couple items that needed to be input that were missing. And so I am starting from January of 25 going forward, and I have Springbrook going backwards in time to kind of fix 24 for me so that I can focus on getting this year completely done and caught up. So that I'm not having to juggle 2 years at the same time.
Okay, council questions? Ms. Hancock?
So what I'm hearing is that we're still using Springbrook. I know the previous finance director brought in ClearGov. Does Springbrook have the same qualities as ClearGov as far as you're concerned?
So Springbrook is a cash basis and ClearGov is an accrual basis.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, no, no.
Going to be two very different systems. I will say that there will be a projection to where we are going to have to probably eventually get to that accrual basis accounting. It will be recommended by the state. Once you hit so much revenue, it's just best practice. And so that will come up when it's time to get that 5-year plan going, to be able to make sure the staff is fully trained, because it would be a huge hardship on the staff for them to just be given something that they've never been trained in.
So we're going to use Springbrook then, and
We are going to use Springbrook, and then I don't want to take the shine away from my best friend here. That's been my best friend, so we are looking at quite a few different things with IT, and ClearGov has some great modules within it that I think that it right now would be best if we could open up some of those modules that would be beneficial to the city. And then as we move along, plug us into like place and last when we're ready to get that accrual accounting going.
Okay, further questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
I had some questions for you, and thank you for getting back to me on the email. So they used to tell us that it was 80 pages per bank statement. How many of those pages do you use for the actual reconciliation?
So the first 10 or 11 pages has all the information that you need to be able to like match. If something doesn't look right, like you'll see sometimes it doesn't scan a check properly, and so it just has zeros instead of reading what the check number is. And that's just because the bank scanner just doesn't catch it. And so when that happens, you use the little pictures of the checks on the back and you find that one, and then you can match it to what the check number is supposed to be. But usually the first probably 11 pages is what you use to be able to reconcile the bank account.
And you said that you did 3 months over the weekend?
Yeah.
Pretty quick. Another question that I have is on the budget that we approved for 2025. There were some the line items with some numbers, the bars numbers, but then on the statements that we've been receiving, there was additional line items that were not necessarily on the 2025 budget. Have you seen that discrepancy?
So there's a couple things there. What I'm going to say about the line items is you're probably going to see more, and they're going to fall within the fund account. And the reason why I'm going to say you're going to see more line items that don't have a budget beside it is because for me to be able to accurately give Washington State the financials that they need at the end of the year, I have to be able to pull some of that information out. Plus, for us to properly budget, we have to be able to pull some of those items out to know exactly what we're budgeting for. The ambulance, for instance, cannot have all of its medical supplies put under one lump sum of all supplies for the entire ambulance and fire. It's just, it can't be like that, because you need to be able to separate it out. Plus, if you're going for grants or anything like that, then you need to be able to know exactly what those line items are. That also being said, my best friend here has a task. I have to be able to report all of our software subscriptions. It's called the SPIDAs, and if they're all mashed into one line item, I have no idea. So I literally have to go invoice by invoice right now to look to see what was spent so that I can actually properly close 2024. Because even if it's reconciled, I still don't know what the amounts are for our leases, what the amounts are for bonds, what the amounts are for grants, what the amounts, all of it's been just kind of shoved together. And so I need to pull it all apart to be able to really give them accurate data.
Okay, further questions or comments? Ms. Hancock.
So, Astro Hire, we paid over $60,000 to Astro Hire.
I see 3 invoices. One of them was 5,000, one 22,500, one 41,300.
Okay. And that was a professional service to find employees.
Yes.
So we paid nearly $60,000 for 3 employees. Is that correct?
4.
4 employees. And I don't remember council giving approval for that. Not your fault. I'm just saying, how are they listed as a vendor? Do we have an EIN number or?
I can see them right here. They're in here as a vendor, they're under account number, and I would imagine they would have to have a W-9 on file, and I will double check because
Thank you.
in here that does not, the box is not marked that there is one on file.
Okay, would you check that for me? And what is fund number 322?
That would be a revenue account, so let me look.
Because the approved budget for 2024 was $229 and it turned out to be 815, 315, the end of 2024.
So are we talking about the revenue accounts for 322?
I just have this piece of paper that's 322, so I'm assuming for 2024, whatever fits that 815,000 mark.
Because that would be a revenue account.
Okay,
Anything that begins with a 3 is going to be your revenue accounts.
Okay.
Anything that begins with a 5 is going to be your expense accounts.
okay, okay. Would you check on that for me?
Yeah.
I don't have to get back to me today. And why do we not have any budget adjustments for this year? Aren't there some that should probably be happening?
There are some that should be happening, and
Now.
you'll see probably more than anything, you're gonna just see some adjustments where we're just gonna allocate things the way that maybe they should be, so I can pull things apart a little better.
Yeah, typically we'll have 3 or 4 budget adjustments throughout the course of the year. It's a normal year. So we didn't have any last year and haven't had any this year so far. Ms. Vasquez, you had a question?
Yeah, I know that the city had hired additional help to help with the reconciliating part of it all. Is that help still around or?
No, so I believe it was about my 3rd week, I requested for him to stop doing the reconciliations because I noticed that the things that were in there needed much deeper dive into it. And on the back end, the other part that I didn't really get to, the reason why it's taken a little bit of time is because Springbrook has to go in and by hand change the bank account for every single credit card that was ever done for the entire year. So they literally have to click, change the number, click, change the number, click, change the
Oh,
number
wow.
for every single one. Yeah, it's not like a throw it all in there kind of thing. So it's a little bit of a process. I asked them to do 25 first so I could get working on 25. So then they're gonna start getting the rest of 24 done. The last week that I utilized that contractor was, I just requested him start pulling information regarding invoices because I needed to be able to find specific invoices and start allocating things properly. And then I just let him know that last Thursday that the services were probably good.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Ripley.
I have an invoice here from the last guy. And for his month of July, it was 7,000 something that he was paid. And usually it's 2,000 some. He was working 11, 9, 12-hour days. Do you have any idea why? Usually he worked 4 hours, 2 days a week.
I'm not really sure why that was happening. That was before, it was allowed prior to me.
Uh-huh.
So I don't really have an answer as to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Deputy Mayor.
So, excuse me. So I noticed on the last statement that they provided us, there were some different accounts that were way over budget on the professional services sides and even on the miscellaneous side, right? The account, you're laughing because
Miscellaneous, yeah.
I'm not a big fan about miscellaneous, especially this 518 centralized services, with the budget of $250 and we're over budget $38,000 on miscellaneous. Is that number pretty accurate or?
So the expenses are there, kind of what I was saying before, where everything kind of got smushed together. And so you're seeing, I think maybe a budget that wasn't put together well because there wasn't a lot of input on the budget. And so I think that the budget needs to really have another set of eyes and all of those line items. If you saw my spreadsheets right now, you'd probably laugh because I've highlighted everything. I'm like, what is this? What is this? So I've been really trying to go through it. There's a lot of items I do need to address in all the fund accounts. And so I will be looking into those. And no, I don't like miscellaneous codes. Those all need to get pulled out of there.
And if I can with the follow-up, so I guess if you can help me understand what the process is, with the professional services, if the department sees that it has a budget of $2,500, I'll go back to the 518 account. And it's over budget right now, $55,000. So wouldn't I guess the city hall employee see, okay, I have $2,500 in a budget and we've already spent, say, 20,000 and I want to spend another 30,000. Is there steps that they should be following?
There are, but I'm gonna say that I don't
Say
believe that the
that's-
staff has been given budget reports.
Hmm.
Unless they were shown how to pull their own budget reports. I don't know that they've been getting steady budget reports. And so that's something that we're working on. So that way we have a little more transparency just within us as a staff. And that way, if there is questions or needs, we can work together to get it addressed here at council.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hancock.
So I'm concerned, is the city current on their tax payments and that sort of stuff? Are they submitting their tax payments on time?
They were not. When I came aboard, the last time the taxes were filed was in February or March, I want to say. When the gal that went on leave, she had provided all that information to the prior administration and apparently none of it had been taken care of. And so none of the revenue was put in, none of the taxes were paid. And as far as I can see, like it was literally blank across the board. And I was having a really hard time getting access to anything to be able to take care of these items. And so they're now all caught up.
Okay,
We did have to pay some fines.
yeah.
Everything is caught up to date right now.
Okay, can you report to council how much our fines were?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, comments?
Just want to say what a breath of fresh air.
So a lot of this information I'd had because I had met with Monica before and she shared some of this with me and I walked out of her office shaking just a little bit. I was very upset because it was a year ago that we were in the same situation. Not the same situation, obviously. We were told that we were deeply in debt and we had a huge deficit a year ago. And so now to find that we've got finances that have not been done properly and records that have not been maintained properly had me, well, I was blowing a fuse a little bit there. I was very unhappy. I am grateful for you for pointing that out to us and bringing us up to speed. We were brought up to speed a year ago too, and we were assured that it was all going to be fixed. Is this all going to be fixed? Is this surmountable?
It will be fixed. It's going to take a little bit of time, I think, just because I'm dealing with a year and a half, a little more than a year and a half of information that I'm trying to kind of work on. My goal right now, just because the numbers in there, I can't say the numbers in there are true. So another thing I found that the LGIP investment fund hadn't been done or input into the system since May of last year. So that was the last time that any of the investment funds had actually been even input. So there was no reconciliation to do because there was just no information put in.
What fund was that?
The LGIP, the local government pool, the one for here, Washington, that one. It's separate from your safekeeping. The safekeeping is an investment where they buy bonds, and then the local government kind of does the same thing, but it's with Washington State instead of a different company.
Okay, thanks.
If I may, I guess is there some sort of procedure for next time? Like if somebody goes on leave, should somebody be picking up that slack?
And that's something that I'm working with my staff. I think it's really important to not hold all your cards to your chest, that you need to really empower your staff. And that's something I'm really, really, really adamant on. I think my staff needs training. I think they need to be really lifted up because they haven't been. So for me, my goal right now is to just simply like give them the power of knowing that I'm here to support them. They are the forward-facing people who have to deal with all the things that our public needs. And so if they're not getting fulfilled, then it's going to show in the customer service, and I don't want that. Right now, I'm just really focused on giving my staff everything they need to get that empowerment, to be able to get the training, and to be able to be provided all the tools to be able to keep this going and for it never to slip back behind. If they're all given these tools, then anybody can go on, vacation and somebody's going to be able to cover. One of the things that we've talked about is once, they're in the roles that they're in and they're really like settled, I'm going to mix them up. I'm going to make them kind of switch and say, you get to do payroll for a little bit and you get to do this for a little bit and so that way they're all really getting a good grasp of each other's roles, because, you never know, they might switch and end up liking doing something else more than what they're doing. And so it's just going to help really build the team, and also having a secure feeling and knowing that if you do leave, you're not going to come back to a mess.
Okay. And one more if I can,
You may.
do we still have any openings in the finance department that
I
we need to
hope
fill?
we do.
I hope we do too.
That is something that I am going to be discussing with you. So being in the role I'm in, I know that there's an opening for a finance supervisor, and I'm wanting to take that away for this next year, because I don't think it's fair to bring another stranger into the group and throw another player in that mixes everything up. I want my staff to be able to fulfill that role. I want them to be able to grow into that role. I think that we have some great people there. Esme's been with the city for since 2018, I think, probably longer. And I'm sorry, Esme, if you're watching, but she's our payroll person and she's great. And Mary came back to the utility billing, and Mary has been there for a very long time. And she left, she was in the community center for a while. Now she's back. Diane's back, and she's like my right hand. I need her to be able to, walk me through some of the things, because she has the history and the knowledge and the drive to really want to learn these things. Lisa, who's been sitting at our front desk, is a temp, and I want to keep her on full time. And in order to do that, I got to move a few things. And so my ask is that I can take that one position that was there for the finance and the supervisor and bring it down to the level of the assistant accounting #1, because that would give me my last person, Vanessa, who is my AP, and she's my little rock star, because she's trying as hard as she can to learn everything, and she's just like hungry to learn, and she's been doing such an amazing job. She really deserves to move up. And so that would give me the ability to move her up and to then keep Lisa on full-time staff.
Awesome. Well, you sound like a great leader, and thank you for that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Very much appreciate that. It's not easy to hear that we're in financial situation, but we've all been in this position before, and none of us likes it, but thank you for that information. We look forward to working with you and getting ourselves back to where we need to be. Obviously, while you're doing all of this, we've got to start getting ready for next year's budget as well. So that adds a different burden on top of you. Are you able, and you feel like you're going to?
Plugging away in the middle of reconciling, I take a break to rest my brain, and then I look at these numbers and start plugging away. And I've been sitting with the team here, and we've sat, the gentleman down at the end of the table, sat with him this morning, and sat with the fire chief recently, and we have more meetings to go, but we'll get there.
Okay, and I appreciate too your desire to get department heads involved in the entire process of working with their budget and having them on board and knowing where their budget is. And so I think that will help them. And so I appreciate that attitude as well. So thank you very much for that. Are there any further questions before we move on to the next item? Ripley.
I appreciate her bringing her computer. You are a whiz on that. It really answers a lot of questions.
Yep, and I like your team approach. That's what we
Yes.
need to be as a
Say I
team.
do have one ask.
Okay.
So being that the team really needs some training and really needs to be able to be empowered, I like to be able to have sit downs. I did close the office during lunch hours one day out of the month, last month. And I provided lunch and we all sat down and we discussed like where we were at as a team and how things could work better. And I wanted to present moving forward, if once a month, if it was the last, Friday of the month, that we could just close for that lunch hour. From 12 to 1, to be able to have an in-staff service, to be able to provide them all the tools they need so we can have that open dialogue as a team.
Oh,
I think that's
absolutely.
probably something you'd want to take up with the city manager, but
I
I
think
don't
that's-
I don't see why anybody would object to that.
Yeah, manager's the one who approves that, and I think by the grumblings I heard, it sounds like everybody's in approval. So.
Just notify the public.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, there's always a sign on the door, I'm sure.
Yeah.
that works.
All right, well, thank you for all of that. I know that was a lot to ask of you on your first time before council, but yet it was something that we all needed to hear, to be caught up on. And I know that I think the public is pleased to hear that your honesty as well. So I think that's gonna make a different public perception of how things are going at the city as well. So that's great. All right, our next item, signature event security cost discussion. And I'm not sure who brought this one before, Mr. City Manager. Is this your item?
This came up with LTAC. Sorry, this came up during the LTAC meeting, last week, I believe, or the week before. Deputy Mayor Gavon was there. The discussion is, as LTAC looks to disperse funds, these events are large. They pose security concerns to the public as well as to the businesses and the folks that are attending. And so how do we handle that? Do we pass that cost on to the event sponsors? Or do we supply money to them to help offset that cost? Currently, and I'll defer some of this to Chief Lehman as well, these costs come out of their overtime budget. Chief, is this correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and so that's the question, is how do we want to approach this going forward? I believe the cost for Sunshine Days for security, if they had to provide their own outside security, is north of $30,000. That's far greater than their ask for funds from LTAC. Certainly, we get with 3 or 4 of these large events like this, that could wipe out our LTAC funds pretty quick if we did that, right? So again, this is a discussion on how we want to approach that, the council and the public, what to do with these dollars, so.
All right, council, comments, questions? Ms. Hart?
Oh, it seems to me with the LTAC funds, when the vendors or the event folks come to LTAC with their request, that they've already figured out a budget and they know how much this and that is going to cost. So they've already factored in how much security is going to be, how much music is going to be, how much whatever else whatever else is on their budgets, that they are already figured it out. So I don't think that this is something we should take and say that we're going to give them something. If they're put it into their budget, that's a different matter, that we could probably see our way clear to fund that. Because I think that's how the budgets go for the different LTAC request. At least that has been how it's been in the past. They've asked for security. Maybe it's not, maybe the Sunnyside Police, but maybe it's private security, and that's in their budget, in their application already. It's built in.
Do you have a response for that, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess it's been in the past that the city has been picking up the security, for having our police officers there at the different events.
That's part of their budget, yeah.
As part of their overtime budget.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
As the event coordinator budget, right? But that's not been, that hasn't been the case.
Has that not been the case? Okay,
Mm-mm.
I misunderstood then.
Ms. Ripley?
Well,
Well, now that it's turned there, I agree with Hart, but if it's in if the city doesn't have the money to pay for security, do we? I mean, we can't keep the pool open.
Well, I think the question is, right, currently that those funds, the city does pay for security through our overtime costs for our law enforcement personnel. But in the ask, in the event document, their budget document, they may note that in there that there's a cost. They're certainly not asking for all their costs to be reimbursed for their budget. You know, we are supplying them some with funds, but we're not supplying them with all the funds they need to operate. Jackie, that's correct?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
In those budgets they sent to us, we don't supply them all their total cost. I'm sorry, that was my first LTAC meeting I attended, so.
I can maybe shed a little light. So
Chief.
about 4 years ago, we did pass on the bill and they paid for it out of their LTAC. When the city took over Cinco de Mayo, it was a previous city manager's position, a couple city managers ago's position that if it's a signature event, we would cover the overtime. To my knowledge, since I've worked here about 20 years, we've never charged for security for parades. But we have charged security to the person for Cinco de Mayo, et cetera, till the city put it on. Now, last year, the city didn't put it on. It was put on by a nonprofit, which was the Noon Rotary, I believe. And the cost of overtime, so myself and the two commanders don't get overtime. So we're down there all weekend, take us 3 out of it. To put police officers, we paid $28,550.50 in overtime for Cinco de Mayo out of the police department's overtime budget. And I think, and I put this together a couple months ago when the deputy mayor first brought this up. And so the question I think is whether we want to bill for that. And if we do we want to take it out of their profits from the event, or do they need to pass that on to LTAC? Or is the city going to go to LTAC by itself to try and request those funds?
Okay. I also think that we need to ask, what is the purpose of the LTAC funds for these different groups who are putting on the events? Are the LTAC funds primarily supposed to be used for advertising, promotion, and that sort of thing in order to get people there? Because the LTAC funds come to us by tourism. I mean, it's the hotel tax, it's that sort of thing. And so are we not supposed to use it for that purpose, to promote and to get people to come into town? Then they really shouldn't be asking for it for security. We do have a precedent prior to the city taking over Cinco de Mayo and other signature events that the organizers budgeted for security. And I don't think we're out of line to ask them to do that going forward. For this year, maybe not, because we haven't done it for anyone else. It's a little bit late to start, you know, when they're ready to start the event and they got the funds approved a year ago. But for 26, we can ask them to include that again. That's not that complicated to add, is it?
No, well, a couple of things. First one is I think that their event has to bring people in. I know that the previous person that ran Cinco de Mayo, I think her easiest way to get reimbursed was the security, to turn in one big receipt to the city once the city billed her for it, and that took care of most of her LTAC. We currently do not have a cost of a police officer in our fee schedule. Because I'm looking at the fee schedule right now, and we occasionally will get people that call us and ask for a police officer for a wedding or something like that. Now, albeit private security is much cheaper because you're gonna have to pay an officer's overtime rate. But we do need to probably get that in the fee schedule, especially if we're gonna try to charge somebody, because we need to come up with that cost ahead of time so that they can budget for it. Cinco de Mayo, obviously, we're very heavy on security because of previous incidents. But like Sunshine Days is, you know, I mean, it's less. But do you charge for officers that are down there at the Christmas market and not the parade, or do you charge for the whole deal? I mean, I don't know how, this is up to you folks, but I mean, we need to have it in the fee schedule, 1, and 2, just determine what we're willing to cover and what we're not willing to cover.
Okay, Ms. Hart?
It seems to me like that we have always asked the vendor, whoever coming up, whether it was the Sunshine Days Committee or the Cinco de Mayo or the parade folks, they were in charge of asking for a certain amount of money for their security. How the signature event got in, where that they would come to the city and ask for money, I don't understand that. I don't think that's how we want to play that game. I think that the events ought to pay for their own security. That it shouldn't be coming out of your overtime. You know, this however they get paid should be paid by the vendor, not by us. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, however you guys want to do it. You
Well,
let,
that's what I'm kind of thinking, and that's how we've done it in the past, and I think that it's most cost effective that we allow those vendors to pay for their own security, whether it's police, whether it's private, however they do it. But I don't think that the city's budget ought to be part of that. It's the LTAC money, that's the money that's coming from heads and beds, the lodging tax money. They ask, they have other places where they get money. When they charge for the vendor booths and all that other thing.
keep in mind the previous lady that ran Cinco de Mayo that we did charge was a for-profit business. I don't know if you want to do something different for nonprofits. If you want to charge them a lesser rate, charge them the full amount, no amount, because now pretty much every event's ran by nonprofits, my understanding. I think,
We're getting
Could
close to
well
that.
be.
yeah.
Could well be, but just on another note on that, I think maybe the first thing we need to do is go ahead and take another look at our LTAC application. Because we need to know what we're asking for in the budget application's budget.
We did,
Did we do that recently?
just this last meeting, we did some changes to it.
Okay, so we haven't seen those yet.
No.
Okay.
Counselor Vasquez.
No, yeah, I maybe just wanted to clear the air because Counselor Hart, you keep saying that's how it used to be done. in the
Well,
past
that's,
years.
and
Julie.
historically.
Okay.
Historically, sorry.
Yes, so you keep saying, right, that it's been done that way for the past years. However, like our deputy police chief just mentioned that prior years, it used to be said that if it were a signature event, that then the city would cover it. And that's how it's been covered, correct? Am I right?
Since,
By over-
since Cinco de Mayo, yes.
Since
Or,
Cin-
I'm sorry, since COVID, yes.
Since COVID, the city has been paying all signature events up until then the city of Sunnyside took over one of the Cinco de Mayos after a big incident happened and then COVID hit, there was no Cinco de Mayo. Then the year after, there was a Cinco de Mayo and no one stepped up to lead that event. So then the city of Sunnyside took charge. And when the city of Sunnyside took charge, that's why then they covered the costs. But then last year, a nonprofit stepped up, but there was no discussion whether who was going to be paying the cost for the police. And since it was caught on so late in time, we just ended up approving it as council and saying, let's not give them an ultimatum and they're gonna be stuck not being able to host or.
That they come before council?
So, yes, there was yes, and we approved that. So the conversation that we're having now is just, how are we gonna go about this current situation that has happened moving forward? And like Police Chief Rob just mentioned, first we would have to go back to the schedule fee and actually create something so we could actually implement that moving forward. And how are we gonna go about it? So I guess that's the discussion that we're having.
Brings us up to date.
Correct.
where we're at.
Yeah.
Thank
On the
you.
screen.
Thank you for that.
On the screen, you have the application.
Draft application.
It's a draft application. Thank you for that correction. So the highlighted area there, security must contact Sunnyside Police Department for an estimate. At the very least, they have to get a hold of the police department and get an estimated cost.
And we have no way to give them an estimate without it in the fee schedule.
All right. So this hasn't been approved yet,
This is the change we made at the last.
but this is a change that was made. And so there's an incentive, I guess, to start working on a fee schedule for that and see, okay, where are we going to be with this and how much is it going to cost and how are we going to vary this from year to year because costs are never going to go down. So we need to figure out, okay, how is this going to be indexed? How are we going to keep track of this and keep it to where the city isn't going in the hole for these kinds of events? And as Councilor Vasquez mentioned, this did happen kind of by default with COVID and certain things happening, and that doesn't mean that it has to go on forever. And so we have to make this correction to fix it so that we're not giving the city a huge bill that we haven't budgeted for. So, we've run into problems with police overtime in the past. This one is something that is easy to correct. And so I think that we should definitely take some work on this. Councilor Hancock.
So Chief, security must contact the Sunnyside Police Department for an estimate. They can't go out and hire a different security company?
They could. It depends on, we would stipulate what the requirements are for security. So right now for police on any given day at Cinco de Mayo, we require about 13 officers. And then we get some supplement from the sheriff's office. So if they wanted to hire private security that didn't have arrest powers, they would probably have to have some officers down there anyway. As far as closing the roads and everything for a parade, I guess they could hire more of Hector's folks. I'm not sure what they would do what private security would come in and do that. Maybe Stripe Right or whoever does construction, traffic control can maybe do it. But people regularly hire private security for quinceañeras or weddings or something of that nature. You know, they usually have two officers there with their liquor banquet permit. And we go check every one of those parties, make sure security's on site if alcohol's being consumed and their banquet permit's posted.
Because my question is, you know, at what you said that cost for security was basically $30,000. Times 4 events. I don't know if those events are gonna pull in that much money.
Well, like coming up for Sunshine Days, we'll probably have 4 or 5 officers down there. It'll be less than half, but it's still, I mean, we're still talking about a significant amount, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, to my knowledge, we've never charged for parades. So the lighted parade, I don't think we've ever charged for overtime, but now they've added some additional things that they do request officers at the Christmas market down there. They like to have officers walking around during that from noon until the parade starts. And then we have a lot of times people will call us for some type of an escort, whether that's the school for the homecoming parade, the little kids parade at the end of the school year, the Bob's just did a old car deal. And what we tell those folks is if we can do it, you know, obviously we want the street safe, right? So we tell them if officers are available, we'll send them. If there's calls and we can't send them, you have no dedicated officer unless you pay for one. So all those people have said, okay, well, hopefully there's no calls at the time. And for the most part, we've been able to cover them. I came in for the car show to make sure they had somebody because it turned out to be pretty good size. So I don't know, there's probably 40 cars down there, 50, but.
Okay, I saw another hand up down there. Councilor Vasquez, did you have your hand up? Or?
Yes, I had a question, but I just got lost in.
Okay,
So it'll come back right now.
circle back to you, Deputy Mayor.
So I guess what would be the cost for if we were to charge for the implemented parade? You have any idea?
A parade usually takes, well, it depends on the size of the parade and which side of Yakin Valley Highway it starts on. So the lighted parade starts on the other side of Yakin Valley Highway. So Yakin Valley Highway and Edison takes 2 officers by itself. We have to have an officer at 241 and Edison to make sure nobody turns in that side. Street department usually takes 2 intersections. Fire department takes 8. We usually have 4 officers on foot at 6 because that's the biggest area. We probably have anywhere from 15 to 20 officers out that night.
So rough estimate, maybe 10,000 for the night, for the day?
It's hard to say. I would have to guess. Let me look here real quick. I can do some quick math and give you an idea.
I guess it's just where I'm going. If we do have these event coordinators pay for their security, then the budget for overtime would also be reduced. Correct?
Yeah, it could be, yeah. Or what you do is leave it the same and you would show money coming in on the revenue side. That's what we do with our traffic safety overtime. It shows it's expensed in the overtime column, but then we get reimbursed by the state when we do HVE, DUI emphasis, those type of things.
Councilor Hancock.
Well, what concerns me is if it costs $30,000 and we have 4 events, farm implement, Cinco, whatever, that's $120,000. That's gonna wipe out LTAC just for security.
Well,
Okay, I don't think that the LTAC requests are going to be covering all of that. I think they're still going to ask for what they ask for, because usually what they ask for is promotion, money for advertising and that kind of thing. I think when we require them, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but when we require them to pay for a security or have a budget for security, that's completely separate from their LTAC request. If they're going to coordinate an event, they want to put an event on in Sunnyside, they need to have security in mind when they organize that event. And when they come before the city to ask for LTAC money, they can ask for that amount of money, but that doesn't mean that we're going to award them that amount of money. So they will have to have that in mind. But as a rule, council doesn't always give, and the LTAC committee doesn't always promote exactly what these organizations are asking for. They may come asking for $30,000 and the LTAC committee comes to council and recommends 10 or even 5. So.
Well, I realize that, but what I'm getting at is if we're saying we're gonna start bringing this in as a revenue and we're gonna start making the LTAC people apply for the security. Where exactly what amount are we gonna ask them to supply? And will it not, if we have 30 times 4, $120,000, LTAC isn't a lot larger than that. So that leaves
Right.
very little for advertising or other promotion of the events.
The understanding is the events that people are putting on are revenue generators. They charge for the booths that they have out on the street. They charge for whatever else they can charge for. It's quite often a revenue generator. And so from that revenue, then they need to think about security as part of their budget planning. Okay? Am I close to correct there, Rob?
I believe so. I think, I'm not sure how much they make at some of these. I know talking with some groups, they don't make a lot of money.
Right.
But I think
We
that,
all kind of underhand that.
yeah, but I think that, we have to keep in mind they're nonprofits, and if we want the events to continue, probably is the bigger question here, because a lot of them aren't gonna be able to sustain it without, the help of the city, some help from the city.
Right, and 30,000 isn't gonna be across the board. I mean, some of them, if they need 5 officers for half a day, that's a whole lot different than Cinco de Mayo for 3 days and.
Yeah, so I just figured, I just took 18 officers off the Cinco de Mayo list at their hourly overtime rate. And if we did 3 hours, we'd probably be looking at about 3,500 to 4,000 if we did 3 hours for the parade. We got them in there set up for the parade and things like that.
For how many
And that would
officers?
be
18 officers, yep.
so about between 3,500 and 4,000.
It'd be about 1,200 an hour, so 3,600, 4,000, somewhere in there.
And again, I think that, as far as the whichever groups are coming to LTAC for money, that's part of their budget is to look for security and for the marketing numbers and all of the different things that go into that. Maybe they have to up their prices a little bit to the vendors and so forth. I know Cinco de Mayo has some of the largest, the most highest of the vendor rates of any of the events that go on in our community. So for them, they have security because of the music people they bring in. At least that's been the way it's been going on. And I think that that's the same way for like Sunshine Days and for the parade, the lighted parade. But it still has to be, or Sort for the Cause, if they ever have to have a police officer out there for the Sort for the Cause. I mean, that's just part of their budget. It's part of price of doing business.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so last year, we originally didn't have anybody applying for the Sunshine or the implement parade, and we had to reopen it. So if you guys are willing to forego not having Sunshine Days or parade,
That's the community. That's on the community if they want to have it or not.
I think with giving the total cost to these events, you're gonna push a lot of people wanting to do these events, especially if they're, the signature events. The other smaller events, yeah, they can do their own security, but the signature events, are we willing to to put that on the chopping block if nobody wants to do it?
I just think we
Well,
gotta
that's a
work it into
legit-
the budget.
That's a legitimate question, and, and that's why it comes before us at a study session so that we can discuss these things. We're not making a decision on this tonight, we're discussing it, and LTAC can go back and work on, based on what we're saying here, so that's not, we're not coming out of here with a final decision. LTAC's not bringing this to us as a proposal, this is, okay.
And an idea that I had is maybe do like incrementals, like in 2026, have, Cinco de Mayo, we're responsible for 10% of the security. And, it just continues to climb year after year. So they could kind of go back and revisit their budget and, okay, next year we're going to be in charge a little bit more of the security. So just an idea.
Okay, Councilor Vasquez?
Yeah, so I have a question. This is probably more for Deputy Mayor, but in the LTAC application, especially, whenever they're requesting money, is there a section that says security, will you be providing? Is there anything like that?
Jackie, you can help me with that.
In the budget is right there, security.
See? Security.
Okay, so then that's the yellow that would be added on now, but it hasn't been, correct?
Right, this is a proposed change, as
Okay.
I understand it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was just my question.
Okay. Further discussion on this item? All right, I think the LTAC committee got a fair amount of feedback. hopefully you're able to take this information and move forward with it. And,
I'm still lost.
still lost.
I don't know what the council
Well-
wants to do.
Well,
I'd like to say something.
go ahead, Counselor Vasquez.
I guess the hot topic of like this whole conversation, right? I heard a lot of comments last year about it falling into the factor of it being of gifting of funds, correct? And we got to be very careful with that. So I guess this is why we're now having this conversation is would it fall into the category of it being gifting of funds, or how can we go about it? And I don't know if our attorney is with us, but like, so that's just my question. And what can we really do? I hear 10%, right? But what would be the most fair and the best way to go about the situation?
And that's a legitimate question, and that's not always the first thing that comes up in people's minds, so that's a good question, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not sure where legally that falls. Do we focus on the city perhaps? I mean, if we focus on the city, perhaps, covering the cost for the signature events only, and the smaller events fall on the person who plans the event, then what are we saying there? Are we going to get into legal trouble by doing something like that? So that's a very legitimate question. Do we have to be consistent across the board in order to not fall into problems? And so I would like to have the attorney present in some of the discussion that LTAC is involved in on that. And I don't know what time you guys do your meetings, if that's going to be feasible or not, but I think maybe getting some feedback from them would be helpful.
I know the applications are gonna be due October 3rd. So that's coming up pretty quick,
Pretty quick.
and those questions are gonna come up. If we don't get an answer here pretty soon.
And when is your next meeting?
Right after that, I think, Jackie.
I'd have to look it up, but the form goes live tomorrow. So if we want to make changes, council can direct us to push it back a week until we get the attorney feedback.
You'd be able to get some feedback from the attorney?
I could
In a
reach
week?
out to her, yeah.
Okay.
So don't publish this tomorrow then, the application?
No,
Okay.
is council okay with bringing this forward next week at the regular meeting for approval of the application? And we could get some information on fee schedules and the legality of, do we charge this back or do we continue to cover the cost? And that'll give you, Chief, a chance to work on some sort of fee schedule?
I'm ready for it.
You ready?
And
Go ahead.
trying to be good. But you need one anyway, a feed schedule.
Yeah, I've got all our officers' overtime rates right here, so I
Yeah.
can tell you what our top sergeant is. That's probably what we need to charge for a sergeant, top officer, and if they hire a command officer.
But we just need to have it included in our fees.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
So we can hopefully get this
Thanks.
taken care of next week, Monday, and be able to move forward. It gives it a slightly shorter period of time to get the applications in, but I think the extra work will be worthwhile. All right, well, thanks to our LTAC chair and the LTAC committee for the work that they've done on this so far. It was a good discussion, and look forward to seeing the finished product. And keep in mind that these contracts, they change from year to year. So it can be updated again next year. It's not going to be, written in stone. So next year we can see where it doesn't work right and take steps to improve it again. Any further comments on this one before we move on to the next item? All right, so the Rules Committee met and has been talking about the Code of Conduct, and the Deputy Mayor has once again impressed me with the amount of time and effort that he puts into the development of these programs and taking a look at policies and looking at things that can be improved upon and updated. And so I'm going to allow him to make the presentation on what he is recommending, what he's found, and what he has reported to the Rules Committee. And so, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, council. Jackie, do you have this document you can put up on the screen? I had Jackie sent all of you guys the proposed changes to the council code of conduct. Hopefully you guys had a chance to look it over. Some of this is just stuff that, stuff like the chair, right? It says presiding officer, it's the chair, so it's stuff that goes back to the rules of procedure. We changed it there, and we just haven't changed it here on this document. So I want to start with the title. And that kind of talks a little bit about, that the code shall be read in conjunction with the most recent adopted Sunnyside City Council Rules of Procedure in matters where both documents address procedural or enforcement issues. The provisions of the Rules of Procedure shall govern. So I kind of tried to make it to each document, deals with particular, none of these repeats. So if there is a repeat, then that kind of gives you an idea of, what to do. Section 1, there's a change from presiding officer to chair. Section 2, there's a change from mayor to chair. There's a few of those changes there from mayor to chair. There's a presiding officer to
Be safe,
chair.
chief.
There's another presiding officer changing over to chair. And then the last sentence there, the city council shall follow Robert's Rules of Order newly revised as its preliminary authority unless otherwise provided in the Sunnyside Municipal Code or Council Rules of Procedure. So it's a lot of cleaning up of the mayor and the chair and the presiding officer, just so all the documents are kind of, on the same track. Yeah.
I remember at this point, the discussion was if we had a certified parliamentarian with our city clerk. I know our previous attorney was certified, but then he's no longer here, Ben. Are you certified, Jackie?
I am not.
Okay.
Is our attorney certified?
I'm not sure if Julie is.
I know she did intervene with some rules of procedure at one of our meetings, so it would do well to ask her if her office is certified or she is certified. But she did step in with some rules of procedure and correcting us in certain things. And so I got the impression that she was, but I never did ask. And so I think that would do well for us to find out for sure. But that's a good observation. Thank you.
So going forward to section 3, there's a change there, mayor over to chair. And I'm not going to read them all. Hopefully all of the council members have read these, code of conduct since we got elected, and probably read it a few times, but I'm just going to concentrate on the proposed changes here. Section 11 goes on to say direct administrative and operational questions to the management. So we use city manager. So what I'm proposing is to strike management and just to have it questions to the city manager. Let's see here. And then there's another change. The city manager shall be copied on any inquiries sent to department heads. So we've discussed this before with other city managers, and we should all know that, any inquiries or any questions to department heads, that the city manager should always be CC'd.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
I think that according to the way the city manager council form of government is that all requests go to the city manager. The city manager then decides which department head it goes to.
So we've had this discussion before.
No, but
where-
it's worth repeating because the way that the city council, city manager form of government is laid out is that the city manager is the person who makes the decision to which department head any requests go to from council members. It's not we may think it goes to one department or another, but the city manager is the person who actually knows. We might suppose this, but we're not supposed to jump ahead as council members, jump ahead of what the city manager's job is, which is to oversee the department heads.
No, I understand
You
that.
know,
And Councilor Hart, while you are technically correct, we also have had a past practice of allowing the current city manager to make a judgment in that area to where, okay, I want it all to come through me. That's the personality of some city managers, and other city managers are much less formal. And they say, yeah, go ahead and talk to the department heads, but I just want to be copied on it so that I know what's going on. So we have in practice allowed that to happen. Is
And
what
I
I'm
think
saying.
that's caused us a great deal of problems. And I think that's why I bring it up, is because I think that in order to be less formal, and the less formality that we have is causing us problems. I think we need to go back to being more formal about it and having all of these requests go to the city manager deciding then to which department it goes to. I just think that it's cleaner that way. And I know we've talked back and forth several ways on it, but that's just what I'm seeing when you say that I really think it ought to be to the manager as per the way the RCW is set up. Then he directs or she directs which department gets this to, and then that person can contact the council member, or the city manager then takes that information and distributes it to the council member who wants to know.
Yeah, and I just added there just based on the previous city managers that's how they wanted
Yeah,
it. So it's up
yeah,
to council,
yeah.
but
Sure.
Yeah.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yeah, so I'd like to respond back to Counselor Hart. So you say it's cleaner that way, and it may be cleaner that way, but is it effective? And the reason why I say is it effective is because I recall when it was done this way in the beginning, I would email the manager, and then sometimes they'd say, "Oh, I didn't see the email," and respond a week and a half late, and I needed the response then. And that's where we ended up having conversations with managers saying, could we go about it this way? That way we also have responses in time. Plus, the managers tend to be very busy. They're up and down. So that's just something that I wanted to toss up there.
Yeah, and
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Hart.
and I understand that portion of what you're saying. Nevertheless, that is the city manager's job. And maybe we may have to walk into the office and say those things, but just because we're impatient to get it, or whatever our problem is, with getting the information, I just really think in order to keep things clean, that it needs to go to, as the RCW suggests, to the manager, to his staff, and then back to us,
All right, well.
then
that-
back to the question.
That argument is noted and certainly valid, and it's, at the end of the day, it's a council decision, because these are our
These
rules
are
of
our-
conduct. And so we can look at that and definitely add that to our discussion. So, Mr. Deputy Mayor, continue.
yeah,
for the
no,
clarification.
I made a note here of the objection to that one. So.
Suggestion.
So going forward, legal advice, I kind of wanted to reword this whole thing. I want to get council's input. So it goes to read, council members are encouraged to first consider whether requests for legal research or action by the city attorney can be addressed more cost effectively through consultation with the city manager or through a consensus of council, particularly when the request involves administrative, policy, and operational matters. Generally, requests to the city attorney outside of council meetings shall be submitted through the city manager to promote coordination and reduce duplication of effort. However, direct access to the city attorney by individuals, council members is permitted in the following circumstances. When the request relates to the performance, conduct, or evaluation of the city manager, when the issue involves a potential conflict of interest where disclosure to the city manager would be inappropriate, when addressing a sensitive personal matters that are the city business related and require legal confidentiality. In such cases, the city attorney shall exercise independent judgment and professional ethics to determine whether and how to share the legal response. If a matter involves the city manager, any written or verbal response shall be handled in a manner that preserves confidentiality and does not compromise the legal integrity of the inquiry. The city attorney's primary obligation is to the city of Sunnyside as a municipal corporation. They shall provide impartial, legally sound guidance consistent with laws, city ordinances, and adopted policies in respect of political, administrative, or individual interest. And the reason I kind of wanted some change here was because the previous wording was kind of confusing. Let me see if I can. Let me see. It had a wording where if it had to do with the city manager, you could contact the city attorney, but then the city attorney would respond to the city manager as well. So that kind of doesn't make sense, right? Why would this city attorney respond to the city manager if it had to do with city manager? Any questions on this one?
Kind of.
Go ahead, Ms. Hart.
It seems to me that in a situation like that where you were wanting to have check on legal advice regarding the city manager, and you didn't want to go to the city manager to get to the attorney, that you might want to then go to the mayor. Have the mayor act then, because does that make sense as
No,
opposed
the
to?
mayor has no authority.
That would be my objection to that as well. The mayor in our style of government is actually more a figurehead and chair of meetings than an authority, so I'm not quite sure what the mayor would be able to accomplish.
Well, that's what I'm just trying to think. Who else would you go to? I mean, you have to. I think the one, I think the one thing you want to avoid is having just anybody, anytime they want to, contacting the city attorney for just random this or that. I mean, that's.
Right, and that's what was trying to
And I
be
think that's what we're
addressed
trying
here.
to address that. I see that. But I'm just kind of.
And that's why it's listing the following circumstances.
Yeah.
Because as we discovered this year, there may be times when council members need to talk directly to the city attorney without talking to the manager. That should be a rare
It
occurrence.
should be a rare occurrence. That shouldn't be our first line of
But-
defense.
We also sometimes have circumstances where in our role as city council member, we have legal questions that are very personal. You go and ask the manager. Well, then the manager knows, is the manager going to reply to all the council? Is this going to get out? And so certain times there should be times that we are permitted to reach out to the city attorney. But most of the time, we should have to go through the manager and respect that chain of command. It's just very similar to what we want our firefighters to do. We want them to respect the chain of command. We want our police officers to respect the chain of command. We too need to respect that, except in very rare circumstances. And that's what we're trying to convey here.
I'm just trying to figure out in my mind how that wording ought to.
And as we're at a pause here, just a quick comment. Jim just texted Julie and asked about her familiarity with Robert's rules. She is very familiar with Robert's rules, knows them quite well, but she's not certified. So just so that we're all aware of that, where she is on that.
Any further questions on this city attorney part?
I kind of want to come back to that one, but go ahead.
Okay, so the next change is in section 20. There's another change. This is mayor, change it to chair. Section 22. There's city council members should. Well, it used to read city council members may refer to the city manager. I'm proposing crossing off may. It should be should refer to the city manager. That was just a confusing reading there.
Just take out the may.
Yeah,
Just
take out the
make
may,
it
and then
affirmative there.
mhm.
Makes sense.
Section 25.
Yeah, one more change that I'd like to suggest there, that right after the red where it says manager, the next sentence, council member is encouraged to contact, council members are encouraged to contact city
Council
manager to report public
members
concerns, are encouraged.
to contact. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, it was the old high school teacher coming out of me. All right, thank you. Sorry, carry on.
Make those changes here so I can. Okay, section 22, there's a presiding officer, I'm changing it over to chair. There's 3 sections there that say presiding officer. The next section, it lists the Sunnyside Council principles of proper conduct. Counselor Frosto suggested, I had put the first two, embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in public services and policymaking, commit to ongoing professional development, ethics training, and accountability to the public. Councilor Frosto suggested those statements be changed to the ones below it. To commit to ongoing professional development, ethics training, equity and inclusion, and accountability to the public. Commit to centering diversity, equity, and inclusion to public service and policy making. So I left both of them on there just so council could see, my suggestions and Councilor Frosto's suggestions. So
Well, Deputy Mayor, I actually like yours, the ongoing professional development. And I think it was just a matter of putting like centering, so not taking out professional development.
those are your suggestions, the ones.
Oh, I thought you said they were yours.
No, those
Oh,
are
okay.
the
Okay,
top
I
ones.
selected.
The top ones are mine, and then
Oh, I see.
the bottom ones are yours.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I like the last bullet, but the one above it, I don't think that's necessary. We're elected officials. We don't do the hiring. Policy making is not going to be subject to diversity, equity, and inclusion, I don't think. I think we're elected officials, and I think we're getting in the weeds a little bit there.
I kind of want to, this kind of.
Go ahead, Ms. Hart.
So you're talking about embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in public service and policymaking. Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes.
Well, I see that as we really ought to, because even as we've discovered a couple of times when we've been talking about adding people to different boards and commissions, being able to have people who are as a council taking into account the people who live in our community, taking into account diversity, equity, and including those concepts when we are looking at public service, when we are looking at policymaking, making sure that I look at that as including the entire community when we're looking at our policymaking and our public service.
What is equity in policymaking, Julia?
Well, we're charged with making policy as council members.
But
That's
what
our
is
job.
equity in policymaking?
Making sure that it's equal to all those concerned. That's what equity is.
That isn't the meaning of equity as it stands today.
Well, I
Okay,
think,
let's not get,
I will just say for the record, I disagree with you on that. I believe that it is about being equal to all peoples.
so let's not get too carried away on this. I think one of the things that we do have to admit is we live in a very diverse community, and what we do as council does have to reflect and will have an impact on everybody in this community, one way or the other, whether we try to term it as diversity, equity, inclusion, or we try to term it as something else. As council members, I think it's important that we remember that in everything that we do, that what we decide here in this room has an impact outside in the community. And it impacts everybody, and it impacts everybody perhaps a little bit differently, and sometimes it might have more of a negative impact on some people than others. So
We
I
all
think,
understand that. I think we're elected to this community, and I think that's incumbent upon us. But I don't know how you put that embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in public service and policymaking when we're electeds.
Excuse me, I think it's because we are elected that we are called upon to do that, to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we are elected. We are the ones setting the policy. We are the ones setting the climate in which our community operates. Because that's our job, is policymaking.
I think we're showing a
Well,
difficulty here, because it's really difficult to define this, because you get these expressions, you get these terms that are out there everywhere. And now how do we define that, and how do we understand that? And then how do we apply that if we're going to make that a priority? And this is not an area where any of us on councils tend to be experts, generally speaking. All right, we all come in from different walks of life, and it's not necessarily an area where many of us have to contend on a daily basis. Some of us do, others not so much. And so we all come with a different understanding of what that means. I don't remember in my history in council where anybody has ever said, okay, we're gonna just totally block out this one particular group and we're just gonna focus on this one group for the benefit of them. That's never been explicitly stated or implied or felt with council. There's always been concern about the entire community. So anyway, Councilor Vasquez, you had,
Yeah, so I had a question. So when we take our oath, right? I remember that we read something, and if I recall, it has something to do with we will serve and we will do the best for our community as a whole, and we will treat everyone right. So I don't know. I'd like to see that. But whenever, so maybe get it emailed. I'm just interested to reread that again.
okay. Could you send the oath of office to council?
Yeah.
Perfect.
May I-
Ms. Fausto.
So, I think going off of what Julia said, and I'm just adding, I guess my own opinion on how I read this, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate you for adding this actually, because it came from you. Whenever we are making policy, whenever we are deciding on something, it's gonna impact the community as a whole, like you said,
Mhm.
Councilor Vasquez. When we take a step back and we start thinking about all of the sub-communities within a larger community, and I think you brought this up one time, we live in a very young community. I think data proves that, I think on average, our residents are probably in their mid to late 20s.
Mhm.
And then another sub-community, are seniors. Another sub-community are people with disabilities, right? And I remember when we were talking about infrastructure and you had reached out to Mike Geary to get his perspective on, around, the decision-making with HLA on how we were going to build our infrastructure to make it more accessible with people with disability. And you were having those great conversations with Mike Geary. And then aside from that, I mean, the list goes on, a woman, and then, I mean, we have to center every person from all different backgrounds and experiences that make up Sunnyside. So we do have that responsibility as elected officials to look at the diversity. And that's economics, social, economic status, again, disability, again, age, again, gender, to make sure that we're making the best decisions possible that will positively impact everybody, especially these subgroups within a larger group within the community. So that's my take on it. And I do believe as elected officials, it is our responsibility to center that in every decision that we make.
And to just follow up on that one, it kind of came up in our discussion a year ago when we were, well, it's a little over a year ago now, when we were talking about the disability access ramps around town and how we're doing all those new ramps by the schools, yet we looked around the rest of the city and we had, oh, how many other ramps that were not going to be updated or made even? And how does that impact the people in the community? I mean, okay, yes, it's great for the kids, but we've got other members in the community who need ramps as well. And so how are we gonna serve them? And so it is part of the discussion and it needs to be part of the discussion. And so, I think the term, diversity, equity, inclusion has been used and misused enough to where it's got a very negative stance in a lot of people's minds, but we're not talking about just a particular group. We're talking about society as a whole and everybody. And so, as Councilor Frausto mentioned, it's disabled, it's age, it's old, young, it's men, women. I mean, we have different expectations, different needs, different requirements in life, and we have to be conscious of that in our decisions. So I'm personally in favor of leaving that line in there. The bullet point, I like that. I think what it does is it brings it to people's mind so that, okay, how does this impact, people in this area? How is this going to impact them? So, Councilor Vasquez.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a suggestion. So, because I see on the bullet point, it says embrace diversity, equity, and then below I see commit to centering diversity, equity. So I like the word respect. It's already saying respect one another as individuals, respect the democratic process, respect the community we serve, And I'd like respect, diversity, equity. That'd be my suggestion.
I like that change.
Okay.
Okay, I think that it follows the tenor of the other bullet points, and if council can agree to that, I think we would be able to move forward on that, yeah.
Guess I can't type today.
Okay, so going forward, section 26 talks about social media, electronic communication. Council members shall use social media and digital communications responsibly, professionally, and in compliance with applicable laws, including the Washington State Public Records Act, RCW 42.56. So some of this stuff is new to council around the states. Social media is fairly new. So a lot of these councils are adopting some of these changes. City business includes any communication, comment, or activity that involves or relates to official city operations, council deliberations, interactions with city staff, public meetings, constituent services, policy decisions, or any matter currently or potentially before the council. The definition applies regardless to the platform used, including personal devices or accounts. Council members shall avoid posting or sharing false, defamatory, disrespectful, or misleading content about city staff, the public, or fellow council members. Personal opinions shared online should be clearly identified as such and not misrepresented as official city positions. Understand that digital communications involving city business may be subject to public disclosure, regardless of whether they were made on personal or city-issued platforms. Treat all written or recorded communications, emails, texts, voicemails, and social media messages as potentially public records. Members should not use digital platform to disparage fellow members, city staff, or members of the public. Council members are encouraged to use sound judgment and discretion in all digital communications, particularly when discussing sensitive and confidential matters. Any questions on social media? Moving on to 27, harassment, discrimination, and retaliation prohibited. Council members shall not engage in or tolerate harassment, discrimination, or retaliation of any kind, including the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, age, disability, or any other protected statuses. Allegations of such misconduct shall be reported to the city manager or a designated authority in accordance with applicable city policies. And I put rules and procedures there because it talks a little bit about that. City Council is committed to fostering a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment in all interactions with staff, the public, and fellow members. Any questions? Section 27. Moving on, Section 28, conflict of interest and disclosure. Council members shall avoid actual or perceived conflicts of interest in accordance with RCW 42.23 Code of Ethics for Municipal Officers. A member must disclose any potential conflicts before participating in discussions or votes on matters that could result in personal finance or familial gain. When a conflict exists, the members shall recuse themselves from the decision-making process. Any concern or complaint regarding unethical behavior may be referred to legal counsel for review and resolution. Any questions on that one? Section 29, violations and consequences. Council members are expected to fully adhere to the standards outlined in this code of conduct. Alleged violations shall be addressed in accordance with disciplinary procedures set forth in most current Sunnyside City Council Rules of Procedures, Section 9.6. Disciplinary action may include, but is not limited to, verbal admonition, written reprimand, censure by the council, required training or coaching, removal from council-appointed committee assignments, removal from mayor's chair as defined in rules section 9.6.4. Any questions here? And the final 30, communication with the press or media. council members speaking with media representative must clearly whether they are expressing a personal opinion. Only the mayor or designee authorized by the council shall issue official statements unless otherwise directed. Any questions on that one?
For the record, the official designee will be the city manager or his appointed staff member as a press liaison. We don't want to be giving out different messages to the press when something is happening. We don't want to be confusing the public. We want a unified message so that people can get that message if there is a need for people to understand what's going on. We don't want 17 different messages getting out from the city. That just confuses things so much. All right, so the social media one is brand new, but it has been something that has been talked about for some time. Deputy Mayor finally is the one that jumped on that particular item and ran with it, and he's done some work on that. I am quite pleased with what he put together. I think this is something that we can look at and approve. I would also like to remind council that this code of conduct, while it does cite the RCW and Sunnyside Municipal Code as well as rules and procedures, is not a legal document. Okay, so we're not signing it. We're not signing our names to the bottom of this as that. We recognize that we were all human beings. I've mentioned this before. And this is something that as a body, we agree that this is what's going to make things work better, is if we agree to conduct ourselves in this way. And we know this because of experience. We've all lived long enough to have some life experience, and we've seen things that didn't work that way. And it is important that we run a well-run, productive council meeting. And that's the goal here. Okay. I think with the RCWs in, yes, it is in agreement with state law, but it is not in and of itself, as I understand it, a legal document. I think, what was the term that was used? It's a gentleman's agreement. That's an old expression, but yeah, we just agree amongst ourselves. This is appropriate. So, if there's no recommended changes to this is going to be coming before council as a motion. So if you look through this, if you see changes that need to be made, please, I'm going to ask that you contact the deputy mayor because he is the author or researcher in a lot of this. He's done a lot of work here, and I want to make sure he gets the recognition for this because he really did put a lot of effort in here. So go ahead and send that information to him. Was there any other comments on this item?
No, just appreciate all his hard work.
And I appreciate all of your comments. They will definitely be looked at, and they may result in another form coming out that you take a look at. And if you see that, go ahead and respond honestly to that one as well. All right. All right. Well, that concludes our agenda. If there's no other, as there being no further business to come before council and without objection, I adjourn this meeting.